Good afternoon. Everybody having fun yet?
Oh, you know, ask us about 3:45 Sunday morning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, you can join our lunches. It's very
Early morning breakfast.
stimulating. We are making good headway on the reconciliation bill. As you all know, this is the legislation that we believe implements the president's agenda and makes our country safer, stronger, and more prosperous. And if you look at how it achieves those objectives, and certainly on the tax side of it, it makes it easier for American families to make ends meet by giving them significant tax relief in several ways. It locks in and makes permanent the lower tax rates that were part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It allows for a permanent extension of the expanded child tax credit. And it also makes permanent the increased standard deduction, which 90% of the people in this country claim. And then on top of that, a number of President Trump's initiatives deal with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, lower taxes on seniors in this country, and no tax on interest on new loans for cars. So those are all things that the President has included. They're included in our package. They were included in the House package. But we think they are important in terms of the message they send to the American people, and that is that we want to allow you to keep more of what you earn so that you can spend it and make decisions that are in the best interest of your family instead of sending that money to Washington, D.C. Couple that with what it does on modernizing our military, making the country safer, what it does with respect to securing our border, and making our country more secure that way. These are all important aspects and components of the reconciliation legislation that's in front of us. And we feel very good about the path that we're on and getting this across the finish line by the end of the week. So with that, I will yield to our whip, Senator Barrasso.
Well, Republicans were elected to provide safety and prosperity for the American people. Democrats lost the last election because they were the party of high prices and open borders. The sooner we can pass this comprehensive economic plan, the sooner the American people will see the benefits that will come from this legislation. The leaders just talked about a number of those things: higher wages, lower prices, lower taxes, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, lower taxes on our seniors. All of these things are critically important. Now, the Democrats have said they're going to do everything they can to defeat this bill. If that happens, the American people will see the largest tax increase in the history of this country. We cannot allow that to happen. I've said it before, the Democrats are also the party of historically high taxes. We're there to provide safety, security, and prosperity for the American people. We're ready to get America back on track.
I really do think this will be an historic week because of what's going to happen with the American family, whether it's keeping taxes low, as we did in 2017, keeping those, whether it's the child tax credit, making it permanent, which will give families a lot of reassurance as they move into paying their taxes. We also create a savings account for every child born in this country. Now, we talk about, some of our, let's say, Social Security that's supposed to be in 2023 or 2033 have some difficulties, a lot of difficulties. What if we start saving? We have that savings account beginning the day you're born. That's going to be really, I think, wonderful for families all across the country. Helps with adoptions. This is a family bill. This is a family bill from beginning to end. The small business tax credits that are in here are going to be made permanent. Secretary Bessent believes, he said this to us today, as I believe, that this will be the biggest growth portion of the bill that will lead to a lot of capital expenditures, more people working at higher wages. One other aspect of the bill, of course, is the border security bill part. This is very important. I was privileged on Monday to host Secretary Kristi Noem to come to Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, where we have the Advanced Training Center for our Border Patrol agents, where we're train over 16,000 a year to meet the challenges on our southern and our northern borders. And she talked a lot about the progress that the president has made in terms of border security. But without this bill, that progress would be stopped in its tracks. We need to move forward with border security to make sure that we're safer, but also those agents that we're training And the advanced training they're receiving in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, at the Advanced Training Center, makes their job safe and the service they're doing for this country much appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Leader Voters, do you expect, even if the bill is going to pass, that you at least have 2 to 3 members on your side who would vote no?
Could be.
Why?
Well, we've got a lot of very independent thinking senators and who have, reasons and things that they'd like to have in this bill that would, in their view, make it stronger. But at the end of the day, this is a process whereby not everybody's going to get what they want. And we have to get to 51 in the United States Senate. We are moving toward that objective. I'm hopeful at the end that we'll have the requisite number of votes to pass it. And we just had Secretary Besson, as you I know heard from, come in and speak to us about why it's important to get the bill done and why it's important that we get it done in a timely way. And so we're looking forward to progressing on the bill this week, and hopefully when push comes to shove and everybody has to say yes or no, we'll get the number of votes that we need.
As a member of the Gang of Eight, do you agree with the assessment from President Trump that the key nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran have been completely and totally obliterated?
Well, I don't, I'm not sure I have, you might want to hear from Senator Cotton, who chairs the Intelligence Committee, an answer on the full extent. But we know for sure that their nuclear program was set back considerably, and that is a victory not only for that region, but for our country's national security interests.
Senator Cotton, do you agree?
In response to a number of concerns that our colleagues have mentioned about ensuring that there be the impact on rural hospitals be lessened, be mitigated, and I think we're making good headway on that solution.
How do you expect to, how do you,
On schedule, text is going to come out Wednesday or Thursday. Can you break it down? Motion to proceed on the bill, first vote on Thursday or Friday. Can you provide any clarity there? And you have a couple colleagues who are outspoken with their complaints here. How are you confident that you'll have the 50 votes you need to proceed?
Well, I just think when push comes to shove, you're looking at whether or not you're going to allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. And there are a lot of things in this bill, as I pointed out. It modernizes the military. It secures the border. It brings tax relief to working families. It has the biggest spending reduction in history, and it restores energy dominance for our country. I mean, I think there is so much good in this, and when people sit down and evaluate how they're going to land in the end, you have to recognize that this is a process whereby everybody doesn't get everything they want, but I think we produced a bill working with the House, working with the White House, that will get the requisite number of Republican senators to vote for it so that we can pass it, get it back to the House. Hopefully they can take it up and pass it and put it on the President's desk.
how do you expect it?
That was batting practice. That was batting practice.
Okay, I'm proud to have my staff join me in this press conference. Where's Jeff? Right here. Good. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us today. Well, one thing has become clear. The more Americans learn about this big, ugly bill, the more they hate it. We just saw polling data in our caucus that showed 2-to-1 people don't like the bill. A majority of Democrats, of course, but a significant majority of independents and a significant chunk of Republicans. Our Republican colleagues are also starting to see how devastating this bill is. Look no further than my good friend, Senator Tillis. Where's our... They're busy talking. Okay. You going to hold it, Gracie, or I hold it? Okay. So let me I'll do it. So this is a chart that he gave out in his caucus, according to Punchbowl. He handed out this sheet that says exactly what's in the bill. Thanks, Jeff. How much you lose with the provider rate tax, each state. Louisiana, $20 billion. South Carolina, $20 billion. Tennessee, $16 billion. Kentucky, $12 billion. Ohio, $8.4. West Virginia, $6.2. Missouri, $6.1. And Iowa, $4.1. And North Carolina, $38 billion. That's a lot of money for anybody. And so in the caucus, he's handing this out. Republicans are really beginning to learn how bad the big ugly bill is for them. Tillis is right. I agree with him. Okay? It'd be catastrophic for North Carolina with Medicaid coverage at risk for over 600,000 people and forfeiting over $38 billion to his home state. And he's not the only one. Republican senators are airing deep concerns behind closed doors, but they're not being honest at home to their constituents. Senate Republicans should listen to Senator Tillis. He's right about how devastating this would be. Republicans might not want to be honest with the American people in public, but Democrats sure as hell will be, now and throughout the summer and on into next year. Senate Democrats have been beating the drum, doing our best to reveal exactly what the bill does. And the more we learn about the bill, the more awful it is. And the more awful it is, the harder we fight. And we know the American people are on our side. So we know just letting them know what's in the bill is very bad for them and shows what we are for. Republicans know that their plan is a debt buster, but they don't seem to care. They're lining the pockets of their billionaire buddies, pretending it won't cost billions, trillions rather, by using a budget gimmick. And all it is a gimmick, current policy baseline. They can deceive all they want. Everyone knows you can push the paper around, but they're actually putting the country in debt with these tax cuts. There's less money in the coffers when they cut the taxes, plain and simple. And they know that. But the debt has a real effect on the American people. Costs will go up everywhere. The cost to buy a car, the cost to start a business, the cost to buy a home, the cost to retain some debt on your credit card bills. Americans are going to be hit hard by the deficit increase alone, and that won't change no matter how the Republicans paper it over with this gimmick called current policy baseline. So it's evasive. Now, finally, I want to emphasize how utterly outrageous it was for the administration to cancel the briefing that we were supposed to get at 4 o'clock today. The last-minute postponement was just a dereliction of their duty to let the Congress know, to let both parties know in the Congress what's going on over there. So what's the administration so afraid of? That they don't want to brief us. They keep delaying it. I asked for this briefing last week. It was scheduled last week before United States action in Iran. And here, all of a sudden, they cancel it. Now, they say they want to wait to have Rubio and Hegseth there. Rubio and Hegseth were never scheduled. And frankly, they want to do that Thursday. That's fine, but it should not be a substitute for this serious briefing, but in addition. And we know what will happen. Hegseth and even Rubio will give us a lot of happy talk, but not the sinew, the details that we need. The people coming today, including Major General Kane, he's known as a straight shooter, would have given us the details we need to know. So we don't need some canned talk points for Pete Hegseth to roll out. If Secretaries and Rubio, as I said, want to come, that's fine. But what happened today was obstruction that undermines the very principles of democracy. Okay? Where is Leader Thune and the Republicans? Why are they not defending the very right and obligation of senators, both Democrat and Republican, to be informed? What the heck is going on? They are just out of control, violating every precept, every principle, every law, unlike any other administration in American history. Senator Merkley. You're on this side.
I keep moving around. Well, let's talk about debt. The Republicans have become the kings of deficit and debt creation. Afghanistan war, Iraq war, the Bush tax cuts, the Trump 1 tax cuts, now the Trump 2 tax cuts. But it's not just legislation in which they have driven up the deficits and the debt. It's also by modifying and undermining the structure of the process that was designed to control debt, specifically the 1974 Budget and Impoundment Act. It was 2 decades and 2 years after that bill passed, Republicans said, well, this bill, it was only for deficit reduction, but we're going to use it for tax cuts that drive up the deficit. Well, that was huge damage to the ability of Congress to make sure that we had a special pathway for reducing deficits. Instead, they turned it into a pathway for increasing them, and increasing them massively. And now we have the Republicans saying, well, there are 2 things that survived our 1996 massacre of the 1974 Act, and that was there could be no deficits after 10 years, and we'd continue to use honest numbers from the Joint Committee on Taxation, honest numbers from the Congressional Budget Office. But now, the Republicans in the Senate are saying, let's get rid of both of those forms of discipline as well. There is a provision in Section 313 that says, absolutely, there can be no deficit creation after the budget window for the reconciliation bill. That's a 10-year window. But Republicans are, speaking of windows, they're throwing that out the window. And the process was designed to create this new organization, Congressional Budget Office, to give us honest numbers. Quit lying to ourselves. Quit lying to the American people about what things cost. Get rid of the smoke and mirrors. That was a form of discipline that is also being thrown out with this so-called current policy baseline. Now, that strategy, invented out of thin air by the Republicans, comes from Section 312. So I just want to encourage you all to be a little bit educated about Section 312. This is the history of Section 312.
One good turn deserves another.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Section 312 has always been used only on a bipartisan basis. Section 312 has only been used on very narrow provisions. Section 312 has always been resolved in that bipartisan way to resolve a small ambiguity. And it has never, ever been used in reconciliation because 312 wasn't about reconciliation. Section 313 is about reconciliation. Thank you very much.
My
You do
pleasure,
that,
Jeff.
You do that really well. And so let's turn to Section 313. And what does it say? It has 5 provisions that say, or 5 elements that say, look at each provision and find out how much it changes revenue or how much it changes costs. This is the 313. I've circled a whole bunch of things here. It says, check this provision. In other words, check what the law, proposed law is, each provision, find out how much it costs or how much revenue it produces or decreases. And how do you do that? You say, here's the provision versus if the provision wasn't there. What is that? That is a comparison to current law. So let me be absolutely clear. Section 312 has no role in reconciliation. It's being used completely out of place, and it's inherently inconsistent. Let me give you 2 examples. In the middle of the 10-year window, Republicans are stopping some tax provisions. Under their theory of current policy, you would continue to cost those out over the 10-year period because you're assuming that they go on after they are dying in law. So they're saying, well, provisions that were in previous law, we're assuming those continue forever, even though the law says they don't. And then they're saying provisions that we're creating and saying stop, actually stop. Totally inconsistent. Or look at another inconsistency. Look at that $5 trillion debt ceiling increase they're putting in. Why is that there? Because the bill increases the debt massively over the couple coming years. So just really want to say we are going to contest the obliteration of fiscal discipline. We are tired of hearing Republicans say they are champions of fiscal responsibility when they do legislation after legislation that drives us into massive deficit and debts, and then proceed to dismantle the bipartisan structure that was designed to create discipline over the budgeting process.
Thank you, Jeff. I just want to show everyone how diligent he is. Look at this.
Leader Schumer.
Questions? Stop yelling. Stop yelling.
Is there a way, thank you, is there a way that Democrats can force a ruling against the current policy baseline that Republicans are trying to use? And did you vote in the New York mayoral race?
I did vote. I was early voting, I think the first day on Sunday. I'm keeping my ballot to myself. But the bottom line is that overruling the parliamentarian would be something Thune said he'd never do. He always said we'd be for regular order and maintain the filibuster. This, in effect, is not maintaining the filibuster because they're doing this in a sneaky way to try and get either a 51 vote or no vote. It's violating the filibuster. No, go ahead.
Do you think the winner of the Democratic Party, though, in primary in New York, should that be the only person from that primary that stays on the ballot in November?
Let's wait and see the results today.
Leader Schumer, what is the Democratic alternative to this bill? Isn't it correct that without some mediation, we're going to see an increase in both personal and business taxes, regardless of what's bad in the bill? Taxes are going to go up.
Okay, look, the bottom line is you will see in the amendments and reconciliation not only what we oppose in the Republican bill, but some of the things we stand for. And the public will see it. We just welcome the contrast that this reconciliation bill brings between what the Democrats stand for and what the Republicans stand for.
Leader Schumer,
Okay.
you tried to get something moved last fall on AI. There's a major AI provision in this bill, the 10-year moratorium. Is that a good idea to delay that for such a long period of time?
Well, what happened in the moratorium is they withdrew the entire national moratorium. They put some strings attached to it. There's a great dispute as to what those strings mean. Senator Cantwell feels they mean one thing, and Senator Thune thinks they mean another.
Leader Schumer, on
Okay?
Medicaid, ask a Medicaid
Last
question.
one, yes, Bolton.
You know, if there are amendments to make this bill better on Medicaid, reduce the size of the cuts, would Democrats support it to make the bill less bad?
Look, there's so much bad in the bill. It's as bad as the Medicaid is. There are so many other things we oppose. Tax cuts for billionaires, as you've heard from us many times. So I don't think that would happen. Thank you. We always, of course we will support. We're going to see, we'll have amendments to change the Medicare provisions, and we'll see how Republicans, who have always said they don't like this vote, let me just say one other thing. Rural hospitals get clobbered. This little fund to help reimburse rural hospitals is just a fraud. there won't be even close to enough money to probably reimburse rural hospitals in any of the larger states.